Good morning, everybody. Christiana, thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome, thanks for coming. It's great to have you here. We have some short remarks, and then we're going to turn it over to Q&A. You might recognize this. This is Earth. It's the best planet in the solar system. We know that because we've sent robotic probes. It's the only good planet in the solar system, and we need to take care of it. And something interesting is happening. The climate science community is actually surprised by how quickly things are changing. This is data from the 30-year period ending in 1980. And this is, you can see the extreme hot events on the right-hand side of this graph. Those are 2 standard deviations from the mean. And this is what you would have expected in that period. To put that in context and easier to understand terms, there would have been a 1 in 1,000 chance of having a season with 2 sigma temperatures. So that red section there on the right-hand side, 1 in 1,000 chance. If you hold steady the temperatures that prevailed at that time, ending in 1980, but look at the 10-year period ending in 2015, you see something very different. There's now, if you use that same standard, if you use the 1980 standard, there's now a 1 in 7 chance. No longer 1 in 1,000, there's now a 1 in 7 chance of having extremely hot temperatures. And you'll notice too that bell curve has not just shifted to the right, it's also flattened. So you're seeing more extremes. The tail on that bell curve is much longer than it used to be. Well, something else is happening too, which is that predictions made by climate scientists just 5 years ago are turning out to be wrong. Those predictions were bad, but what's actually happening is dire. Here's one. 5 years ago, it was predicted that the Antarctic ice sheets would melt at a certain rate. They're now melting 70% faster than that prediction made just 5 years ago. Similarly, oceans are warming 40% faster than the predictions made just 5 years ago. That's data, but the anecdotes aren't good either. So if you look at something very anecdotal, like temperatures in Alaska this summer, you can find that surprising as well. Alaska was super hot this summer. Okay, so I'm going to invite Christiana up. We have some news that we'd like to announce. And we're very excited to do it. Today, we are announcing the Climate Pledge. The Climate Pledge is to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement 10 years early. Amazon becomes the first signatory to the Climate Pledge. Christiana is going to say a few words in a minute, and so is Dara. I'll introduce them in a second. But let me give you some details first about the Climate Pledge. Number 1, so when you sign the Climate Pledge, what are you agreeing to do? Number 1, you're agreeing to measure and report your emissions on a regular basis. Number 2, to implement decarbonization strategies in line with the Paris Agreement, which basically means that these are real things that you're doing in your business, things that you're changing. You're changing your actual business activities to eliminate carbon. And then third, with any remaining emissions that you cannot eliminate with real change, you are agreeing to do offsets that are credible. And what do we mean by credible offsets? We mean nature-based solutions. That's the key. Okay. Now, Christiana, you guys undoubtedly know her already. She was the leading force working for the United Nations that put the Paris Agreement together all those years ago. And then after Christiana says a few words, you're also going to hear from Dara O'Rourke, who is Amazon's principal science in charge of sustainability. And he and his team have worked for the last 3 years to put together the climate models that we're using to do this work. Christiana, over to you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hello, you're welcome to Climatechange Crusaders channel. Please, we are encouraging you to subscribe to our channel, like and share for more insightful content.
Over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. You know, when it comes to climate change, it is absolutely critical that both national policy as well as corporate decision making and planning is actually science driven. That has got to be the north that determines both policy, public and private. So it is quite refreshing, I must say, that the head of a not very small company is actually totally imbued with the science, because maybe all of you don't know that Jeff has a physics background. And so he has put his poor team through immense torture to understand every single detail of both the what we do understand on climate change as well as what we're still here to learn. So Jeff, thank you very much for bringing your physics rigor to this, because honestly, that's what we have to do. We're not playing house anymore, right? This really is now an emergency, and we have to operate here with rigor and with discipline. I would like to share two things that come up for me when I see this announcement of Amazon. And it's the two pillars of what we have been calling for constantly for years: scale and speed. Scale. Amazon is not a small company. So whatever Amazon does to decarbonize its own operation is already a huge help to global decarbonization efforts. However, Amazon is also hereby announcing that it will work with companies upstream that deliver to Amazon, deliver all kinds of goods and services, to have those companies also decarbonize and reach the same goal. So a multiplying effect. And as a third step, Amazon will also begin to work with those companies downstream from them, because decarbonizing, when you understand that the whole economy is actually a web, a value chain that is interwebbed, then you understand that any company that decarbonizes helps all of the people that are downstream. And so that's what we need. If we have to get to scale very quickly, which we have to, we need every single company, particularly the large ones, to decarbonize upstream and help those downstream. So whatever Amazon does not stay within Amazon. It has a much bigger impact. So thank you also, Jeff, for that. And then finally, speed. I have been calling, as have everyone else who works in Paris, for speed. My favorite call on that is swallow the alarm clock. Swallow the alarm clock, because the alarm clock has been ringing actually for a long time. We are totally running out of time. Science tells us that we have about a minute left to get the work done that needs to get done. And the fact that Jeff has understood this, because he understands the physics behind climate change, and has therefore taken his company to take an incredibly ambitious pledge. This is the week and next week of increasing ambition. The Secretary General is calling for a climate change summit in New York, and he is calling all corporations and all governments to increase ambition. This is an amazing, amazing response to say, you know what? Climate is really upon us. Its effects are cumulative. Every day counts, every month counts, and certainly every year counts. So to take the pledge of coming in 10 years early to carbon neutrality is actually a huge contribution to ambition. So we are incredibly grateful that Jeff is doing this. It's not a moment too early. We are delighted, and we certainly welcome the challenge. This is not going to be easy. I'm sure you know. This is not going to be easy, but this is absolutely critical and important. So thank you very much. And should I say, it can only be done if there is really scientific integrity behind every action of Amazon. And that's why it's so important to hear now from Dara, who will explain that.
Thank you. I'm Dara O'Rourke. I lead the sustainability science team at Amazon. Teams across all of Amazon have been working for the last 3 years to map and measure the company's overall environmental impacts. They have been laying the foundational layer of scientific models and data systems to build sustainability in a very Amazonian way. That is science connected to technology, connected to customer obsession, to approach the scale of the sustainability challenges we all face. Over the last 3 years, the core of that work really has been collecting data, building models, building tools, not just for teams to track their environmental emissions, their carbon, but to enable them to radically reduce carbon across the company and down the supply chains. Amazon, as both Jeff and Christiana mentioned, is a very complex, large company. As complex as some countries. You know about many of the businesses, Amazon.com, Amazon Web Services. Amazon is also growing their electronics businesses and electronic supply chains. They're launching private brand businesses in apparel, in food, in furniture, launching totally new businesses almost every year. And we also have a very large transportation, logistics, and brick and mortar footprint. Amazon is as complex as many companies combined. That forced us to build one of the most sophisticated carbon accounting systems in the world. It is a Spark application in native AWS run on on-demand EC2 instances. We had to build a system that could get to granular data, but at Amazon scale, to give teams innovation optionality and to see the overall company view. Actionability requires this finer level of resolution of data. Our system is both comprehensive in covering the entire company and precise enough to get down to system-level optimizations. We can go all the way down to individual products, processes, and services. Let's take the Echo. We can go down to an Echo and understand the impact of the manufacturing. Step back up to the data centers powering Alexa, and then across to the planes, the trucks, and the packages that deliver that Echo to a customer's house. So far, we've built 5 models based in an academic technique called environmental life cycle assessment. 4 of those are process models in transportation, in packaging, in electricity for both our fulfillment centers and data centers, and in devices. We combine internal operational data, process, physical data, with financial data, with external scientific data to stitch it all together into our carbon footprint. We're also using this data in our climate risk analysis. We have partnered with AWS to host over 55 foundational weather, climate, and sustainability data sets, leveraging the infrastructure of AWS with cutting-edge machine learning tools that are already being used by NGOs, academics, and governments around the world to actually solve climate problems. We take business-specific activity data, we connect it to emissions models, we run it through an orchestration layer that stitches it all together into decision support tools, dashboards, metrics, mechanisms that teams can use across the company to drive carbon out. Each of these models has a detailed logic and fine-grained data underneath it. I'll just talk for a moment about the transportation model. The models focus in on the critical drivers of carbon. In this case, vehicle types, fuel types, and routes. This allows us to analyze both our existing networks and logistics, but also to understand emerging technologies, emerging vehicles, alternative fuels. We're now able to model the EVs that are coming, the drones that are coming, the next transportation innovation that will come. Ultimately, this allows us to design sustainability into our future topologies, technologies, and customer innovations. These metrics, this data provides insights for teams across Amazon that we otherwise wouldn't have, including things that may be counterintuitive. Same-day shipping is actually our lowest carbon ship option. This is because getting inventory local to customers is almost always a sustainability win. These systems we built, the models, the metrics, are now giving detailed views for teams across Amazon to help them reduce carbon. We are moving from totals to targeted emissions and innovations for Amazon's customers and the planet. With that, I'll hand it back to Jeff.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. So, super excited about the Climate Pledge. Really excited to work with Christiana to go talk to other CEOs of large global companies and work to help sign them up to the same pledge. This is something that can only be done, meeting these goals, as Christiana was saying, is really something that can only be done in collaboration with other large companies because we're all part of each other's supply chains. So we have to work together to meet these goals. It has to be done that way. And we're signing up to help do that. We want to use our scale and our scope to lead the way. And one of the things that we know about Amazon as a role model for this is that our business it's a difficult challenge for us because we have deep, large physical infrastructure. We're not only moving information around, we're moving packages around. We deliver 10 billion items, more than 10 billion items a year. This is real physical infrastructure at real scale. And so we can make the argument, and we plan to do so passionately, that if we can do this, anyone can do this. It's going to be challenging, but we know we can do it, and we know we have to do it. Where are we today? Today, we're at 40% renewable energy. We've done that by building 15 utility-scale solar and wind farms. We've put rooftop installations on fulfillment centers and sortation centers around the world. Where are we going? Well, on renewable energy, by 2024, we're committing to be at 80% renewable energy, and by 2030, we're committing to be at 100% renewable energy. We have a lot of delivery vans, and they all burn fossil fuels today. I'm incredibly excited to announce that we have just placed an order for 100,000 electric delivery vans. They'll be built by a company called Rivian. This is another example of something very important I want to talk about, which is that when you make a pledge like the Climate Pledge, it will drive the economy to start to build products and services that these large companies need to meet those commitments. This is why we invested in Rivian. We invested $440 million in Rivian. That's part of what I'm so excited about. As this economy develops and people get serious about being carbon zero through real changes to their real business activities, that is going to be a gigantic signal to the marketplace to start inventing, developing these new technologies that these global companies will need to be able to meet this commitment. And so that's another reason we have to work together. We have to get a number of companies to sign up for this to really drive that market signal in a strong way. Amazon is large, but if we get lots of large companies to agree to the same thing, that will be an even stronger signal to the market. That, together with the fact that the supply chains are so interconnected, it becomes the only way to do it, and that's with collaboration. And this is something that Christiana, by the way, can talk about for a long time, and she's extremely eloquent on this topic, and it's incredibly important. The last thing I have to announce is that we are in partnership with the Nature Conservancy funding something called the Right Now Climate Fund. We're funding $100 million to reforestation. Reforestation is a great example of a nature-based solution for removing carbon from the Earth's atmosphere.